this is what lenders are going to tell you when you speak to them, and this is why I tell you it's important to speak to a lender at the very beginning, because they're going to tell you if you're in a good position or not. They're going to ask you, okay, how much money do you have for down payment, and then how much money do you have for closing costs? So if you don't have a closing cost money, you're not in a position to get pre-approved, which then means you can't buy a house.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that, and then have to take time to save up more money. So they take longer to buy a house.
Hi, I'm Ronnie.
Hi everyone, welcome to R&B Productions. This is our third section with Jason Martinez. As you guys know, he's a real estate agent in New York and Connecticut. Jason, we were just talking about the fact that this whole process is a learn-as-you-go process, and you're trying to break it down as simple as you can between the buyer and seller. Going off of everything we've already spoken about, what are the biggest differences you see between New York and Connecticut? Because I know there's some differences there, and from there, we'll go off from there.
I think the biggest difference between New York and Connecticut is that Connecticut, the process there is more streamlined. Like, it's more to the point, and they're really strict about these deadlines. Like New York, if you don't hit a deadline, they'll say, all right, well, we'll just extend it another 30 days, whatever. Connecticut, like, their attorneys really, really work hard to hit deadlines that are in the contract. So in Connecticut, like, everything is just more fast, more smooth, I'd say, too. Just because the agents already have that mentality that, like, we need to do this. In New York is like, we'll take a week. We'll do an inspection next week. Yeah, we'll figure it out. And Connecticut is like, no, everything needs to be written down. This is when I'm going to do an inspection by. This is when I'm going to get my mortgage commitment by. This is when we're going to close.
Yeah.
And everybody's on board. So to make it more clear, when you're in Connecticut and you want to make an offer, you are presenting a contract from the start, as opposed to New York, you're just creating like a one-pager with like the details of what you want to offer. In Connecticut, you're saying, like I said, these are all the deadlines we want to hit. This is the contract. And the buyer sends it to, the buyer's agent, myself, sends it to the selling agent. And it's just more streamlined. If they accept your offer, they pretty much you're getting into contract. So obviously you can back out after your inspection if everything goes terrible, but you just get into contract a lot faster, which is the reason why things go faster. This is why you close faster, is because you get into contract earlier.
As a real estate agent, do you then prefer working in Connecticut just because it gets the process going? And it sounds like they're more like on time, obviously, or do you have no preference?
When it comes to time, like, you really want to get something done quickly, then Connecticut's great for that. The only thing in Connecticut is just there's a lot more paperwork you have to look over and do as an agent. More work than you have to do in New York. In New York, the attorneys handle a lot of paperwork. In Connecticut, you're kind of giving a lot of the paperwork to the attorney. They say, here's what we've done so far, just take us to the end, So if you don't like doing paperwork, then Connecticut is not the place for you. But in terms of buying, if you need to buy quickly and you need to sell quickly, then Connecticut's a great place.
Is there a higher attorney cost in New York because they're charging more because they're doing more work, or no?
Yeah, just the simple fact that everything costs more in New York than it does in Connecticut, they're going to charge you more.
Yeah.
For sure.
What are some of those additional costs that a buyer needs to think about when they're, dealing with not just an attorney, but everyone else?
Yeah, so a lot of people think, like, I need my money for my down payment, and then I'm set, right? That's not true. Like, you have your down payment, pretty much it's into buckets. So you have your down payment bucket, and then you have your closing cost bucket. And closing costs include how much your attorney is. You have to pay for an appraisal if you're getting a mortgage. Like, you're paying for the appraisal. You have to pay your lender's fees for giving you the mortgage. Sometimes you have to pay for a brand new survey for the house, right? That's coming out of your pocket. Obviously, you're paying for the inspection. So, besides the inspection, all this money is paid at the end. If you're giving a down payment, sometimes you can split up. If your down payment is $20,000, you can give $10,000 when you sign the contract, and then you can give the other $10,000 when you close. So you don't have to give all your down payment money at once if you don't want to. You definitely could, and it looks better if you do, but you're not required to do that. So you have your down payment bucket, you have your closing cost bucket, and typically right now it's about 3 to 4% of the purchase of the house. So if you're using round numbers, $100,000 house, your down payment could be $10,000 if you wanted to, but then your closing cost is going to cost you another $3,000 to $4,000.
Yeah.
And this is what lenders are going to tell you when you speak to them, and this is why I tell you it's important to speak to a lender at the very beginning, because they're going to tell you if you're in a good position or not. They're going to ask you, okay, how much money do you have for down payment, and then how much money do you have for closing costs? So if you don't have a closing cost money, you're not in a position to get pre-approved, which then means you can't buy a house.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that, and then have to take time to save up more money. So they take longer to buy a house.
What percentage does a real estate agent take, or what is your commission from all of this? Because I feel like people have asked that before.
I mean, standard, if you're New York, standard is 2%. It depends if you're a listing agent or if you're a buyer's agent. If you're a buyer's agent in New York, either 2 or 2.5%.
Okay.
Connecticut, it's pretty much the standard is 2.5 across the board. Sometimes you'll see a 2 every now and then. But Connecticut, they give you a high percentage more. I don't know why, but that's just the standard practice that's out there. As a seller's agent, you can negotiate your commission however you want to do that. So let's say typically you get a 5% listing, right? Meaning you'll give 2 or 2.5 to the buyer's agent, and then you keep the other side. A lot of sellers think that I'm paying 5% for just one side, but no, I have to split that money. If you're the other agent, I'm giving you the money because you brought me the buyer. So it's only fair that I'm splitting this money with you, right? Without you, there is no deal.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to tell sellers, like, we're not keeping all this 5%. That'd be great, but we're not. We're splitting this with you. And then on top of that, we have to give a portion to our company, for having our license with them and providing us with resources and trainings and all that stuff. So you don't take home as much as what the public thinks. They think you make so much money, and there is a lot of money to make, but it gets taken and broken down a lot sometimes.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Do you see a lot of issues when it comes to people understanding all of these different costs? Are there difficulties for them to get that, or is it usually like you show them the numbers and they're like, oh, okay, I get it?
Yeah, I mean, if you've never done it before, like if it's your first time selling, sometimes it's hard for people to understand. They just don't understand that there's money that has to be paid out, right? It's a service, right? It's like if you go to a dentist, like either your insurance is paying for that or you're paying for that out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
Somebody is paying for this. Same thing if you're buying a house. Like somebody needs to pay because it's a service. Like you go to a mechanic, you go to the dealership, you have to pay money for something that somebody's doing for you, right? It's the same way. So yeah, we break it down. I mean, we show them numbers, and once you put numbers on a table in front of somebody, it's easier for them to understand and kind of see like the picture.
Yeah.
And it's not that because we have commission breath or we're hungry for money. It's because this is how the process works. You can choose to not work with somebody because they might quote you 5% listing. So a lot of agents will compete and some will lower their commission, in order to get that listing, which is fair and it's normal. But as a seller, you can't, expect that you're not going to pay anything. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for answering all of that.
Mhm.
One question for the general public in general. Maybe you have background about this, or like you just give us your perspective. But are there certain areas that are considered up and coming right now, out in New York, Connecticut, or you see a lot of people starting to buy? Just give them, a little like what you've seen. He's not giving you guys advice or suggestions. He's just seeing, giving us a little view of where things are going out faster than other places. Besides, the usual like the Westchesters or like.
Yeah.
Are there any other areas that people are all of a sudden like moving to? That you're.
I
Like,
mean, obviously,
interested?
like the closer you are to the city, the more attractive it's going to be for somebody, like in our area. But really, since COVID, people have just been moving up, or like east or west. Like a lot of people have gone into Connecticut recently because your taxes are generally cheaper in Connecticut, so it's more affordable. So your money kind of goes longer or further there. So that's why people are moving out there. Moving north is kind of the same thing. You get more space for less money. You're not as crammed. You get more acreage, more privacy. So a place like Poughkeepsie is up and coming, up in Dutchess County.
Yeah.
Putnam County as a whole, right above Westchester, is a small county, but like Mahopac, Brewster, Carmel have been really hot. Anything that comes up in those towns that's decent gets swiped up right away. Right away. And then a lot of people have been moving over to like Orange County, which is across the river on the left side above Rockland County, like Middletown. There's Newburgh, that's up and coming. Places like that. Yeah. The further north you go, the more opportunity you have, and the more potentially privacy and space you get. So
Yeah.
everybody's just going up. Everybody from New York City went to Westchester. People from Westchester went to Putnam and Dutchess, and I'm sure the people from Dutchess just keep going more upstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see more construction being made out there too? Like, are people like, I guess, are those markets actually increasing, or just people moving there and just like, we're from Sleepy Hollow. There's a lot of construction there, so I'm wondering if there's the same thing happening up there. Like,
I mean, the construction that's happening in Sleepy Hollow, like the people buying that are from New York City, so they're going up. There's a lot more construction up in like Putnam and Dutchess County. There's a lot more investors nowadays that are buying up pieces of land to build these new houses, and I have a couple of guys that are doing that themselves. They bought one piece of land. We're in contract right now for another piece of land to build brand new houses and to sell it.
Yeah.
It's a great investment and a great business opportunity if you can do it, if you have the money. So a ton of investors trying to do the same thing, which also saturates the market. It becomes harder if you are an investor.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with so many more people who think they can do it now. As a buyer, it becomes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, that's important for you to bring up, or that I was thinking about. Can you explain the strategy or the differences between a home buyer and an investor? And when I say investor, I'm not talking about commercial. I'm not thinking like, how big buildings. I'm thinking more of like, if I wanted to buy a property and it was a 2-family property, I want to buy a property, live on the bottom, and rent the top.
Yeah.
What are the strategies that you see people do? Like, is it? I know that's a strategy right there, but like, what is their thought process? Do you recommend it? Is that more difficult to do?
In a way, if you're an investor, it's easier to be a regular home buyer because it's strictly an investment. So I just ran into this last weekend. I took a couple out to see a house. We were only looking for houses for them to live in, right?
Yeah.
But then we saw a house where there's a tenant in there for another 9 or 10 months, which is right in their neighborhood where they currently live. So they're thinking like, let's just buy this keep the tenant in there that's paying a lot of money per month. It's going to cover their mortgage, and then they'll also make something on top of that every month. So when I told him after we saw the house, I was like, listen, whatever you saw today, just know you're not going to live in here. You know, you got to think about this strictly as an investment. So would you redo the kitchen completely? Like, probably not, because you're not going to do it to your taste, you know, because you don't have to live there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when there's always going to be a need for rentals. That's not going to go away. Like, you can put up a rental today and you're going to get a lot of hits, a lot of calls, and a lot of inquiries.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find renters easily. So the advantage you have as an investor is that you're looking past, like, okay, I need to paint this, I need to change the countertops. Like, a regular home buyer may not want to do that work, but you as an investor, you know you're going to have to do it regardless if you want to become an investor. Like, you have to put in work to these houses. You're not, most of the time, you're not going to walk into a house and it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
You're saying you have to make it attractive for other renters to want.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to make it as attractive as you can. But when you're not living in it, maybe the amount of money you're putting into it is not as much, you know, because it's not something you're going to wake up to every day.
Yeah.
You know, it's strictly, really, it's a business thing. It's a business opportunity you're getting into, not a personal one.
What are some, I guess, because you also are able to help out people that need to live in those houses, like, or apartments, like renting and stuff like that. Do you deal with the contracts in the sense where, like, have you ever, like, read any of them and been like, oh, like, that's interesting, like, they told, like, whoever's living here that they need to cut the lawn? Have you, like, seen any of that, or is it more of like you just like don't see that, like, you don't deal with that?
No, I deal with a lot of rentals. Every place is different, but it's explained up front. So if I put on a rental listing, we're telling the people from the beginning, like, you're responsible for all utilities per month, or the landlord's covering everything, or it's like you're responsible for, like, your electric or your heating or your gas, you know. So it's all listed up front, so nobody's, like, confused later on. And yes, that goes into your lease, you know, when you find somebody. But it's pretty clear from the start. At least we try to make it clear. Like, some people kind of hide it a little bit, which is a little weird. But I mean, as far as my team and what we do, it's pretty, like, here's the information. If you want it, you know, you can move forward. So it's completely up to you.
Interesting. Do you know anything about, I was talking to someone at the gym about this, about Section 8 housing. Could you give us a little background about that? And as well as, like, how would, because we're talking about investments specifically, so I understand that there are specific states that provide, like, better Section 8 services, or, like, for an investor that wants to get involved in all of that. I think that's something interesting, and just because it was brought up earlier today, it's fresh in my mind. So can you talk through that?
To be honest, a lot of people don't know what Section 8 is and kind of, like, what the program is really about and what it entails. To be honest with you, it's actually illegal for somebody to deny a tenant because they have a Section 8 housing voucher. But some people are sketchy and they kind of skate away with it. But in terms of business opportunity, it's guaranteed money every month that you're getting. You know, so Section 8 is going to give you the full amount of rent given to you every first of the month, or the majority of the rent. Sometimes a tenant has a voucher or a housing voucher will get all their rent paid for, and they're not responsible for anything. But sometimes they have, like, a small payment.
Yeah.
Like, I currently have a client that has a voucher, and the last one she did, I think the rent was like $2,600 a month. But out of pocket, she was only responsible for like $200 to $300 of it, and then Section 8 was covering the rest. So what I tell people is, let's say you bring in a Section 8 renter, and the rent is $2,000, right? And they're covering, let's say, $1,800. Let's say, normally, if you have a regular tenant without a voucher, if they fail to pay your rent, you're out of the whole 2,000. Section 8, if the tenant is not paying their 200, you're still getting 1,800 of the 2,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when I explain it that way, they seem to understand more. You know, there's more paperwork involved. You have to just sign more paperwork as a landlord.
Yeah.
But everything is still the same. Like it's regular person living in there. They just need some assistance with their rent, and they get a bad rap for it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which sucks because a few people ruin it for the other people who really need the work and the help. I mean, and they're great people who just are down on their luck, and just like I said, they just need assistance. But a lot of people don't really fully understand the benefits to it.
Yeah.
And then they kind of lose out on those people.
Interesting. As an investor, you talked about it from I guess a renter that has the voucher.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's Section 8, I guess, like buyer then like rents it out could know about it. Does that make sense? Like someone that's like wants to turn this whole thing into a Section 8 building, for example. Is there any guidelines or specifications requirements that they need to know?
So basically, the only thing with Section 8 is that they want to make sure that the place is livable. That it's clean and the electric is working and the heat is working. All the normal stuff that you want to make sure you take care of, regardless of if it's a Section 8 renter or not. So that's the only thing. I mean, they'll come and do yearly inspections.
Yeah.
And if you have a Section 8 voucher, you have to recertify every year. So that's basically it. I mean, there's no huge difference, but people think there is.
Interesting.
You really just have to maintain the property, which you should be doing anyway, if you're an owner. That's how I try to break it down to people. It's just if you just do what you need to do, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. I find it interesting that it has such a bad rep, but it sounds like a very safe option for an investor.
It's a very safe option.
And it has, like you said, a bad rep. It doesn't make sense to me, but I guess that's how the world works.
Yeah.
But those were all my questions. Jason, thank you again for coming today. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
I think all of this information is going to be very valuable to a buyer, a seller, just about anyone that's just interested in the real estate market. So thank you very much. Any last remarks before we close this down?
If you have any questions about selling or buying or renting, if you're just curious about anything, even if you're not ready, if you want to know just more about real estate, or even if you want to become an agent yourself, you can always talk to me. You can text me. My number is easy to get. If you just Google me, email me, whatever you want to do, DM me. I'm always available for anybody.
Yep. I'll provide all the information in the description section. Thank you for listening to R&B Productions. Make sure to subscribe if you like this information. If there's anything else, write it down in the comment section. Any questions, anything else that I can help out with, just write it down or send me a message. And thank you for listening in.